Leadership law number 3, the law of process. Leadership develops daily, not in a day. Ann Scheiber was 101 years old when she died. For years, she had lived in a tiny, run-down, rent-controlled studio apartment in Manhattan. The paint on the walls was peeling, and the old bookcases that lined the walls were covered in dust. Rent was $400 a month. Scheiber lived on Social Security and a small monthly pension, which she started receiving in 1943 when she retired as an auditor for the Internal Revenue Service. She hadn't done very well at the IRS. More accurately, the agency hadn't done right by her. Despite having a law degree and doing excellent work, she was never promoted. And when she retired at age 51, she was making only $3,150 a year. Imagine the surprise of Norman Lamb, the president of Yeshiva University in New York City, when he found out that Ann Scheiber, a little old lady whose name he never heard and who had never attended yeshiva, left nearly her entire estate to the university. When I saw the will, it was mind-blowing. Such an unexpected windfall, said Lamb. This woman has become a legend overnight. The estate of Ann Scheiber left to Yeshiva University was worth $22 million. How in the world did a spinster who had been retired for 50 years build an 8-figure fortune? The answer is, she did it one day at a time. By the time she retired from the IRS in 1943, Ann Scheiber had managed to save $5,000. She invested that money in stocks, and by 1950, she had made enough profit to buy 1,000 shares of the Sharing Plow Corporation stock, then valued at $10,000. And she held on to that stock, letting its value build. And by the time she died, those original shares split enough times to produce 128,000 shares worth $7.5 million. The secret to Scheiber's success was that she spent most of her time building her worth. Whether her stock's value went up or down, she didn't sell it off with the thought, I'm finished building, now it's time to cash out. She was in it for the long haul, the really long haul. While other people worry that they may run out of funds before the end of their lives, the longer she lived, the wealthier she became. When it came to finances, Scheiber understood and applied the law of process. Becoming a leader is a lot like investing successfully in the stock market. If your hope is to make a fortune in a day, you're not likely to be successful. There are no successful day traders in leadership development. What matters most is what you do day by day over the long haul. My friend Tag Short maintains, the secret of our success is found in our daily agenda. If you continually invest in your leadership development, letting your assets compound, the inevitable result is growth over time. What can you see when you look at a person's daily agenda? Priorities, passion, abilities, relationships, attitude, personal disciplines, vision, and influence. See what a person is doing every day, day after day, and you'll know who that person is and what he or she is becoming. When I teach leadership at conferences, people inevitably ask me if leaders are born. I always answer, yes, of course they are. I've yet to meet an unborn leader. How else would you expect them to come into this world? We all laugh, and then I answer the real question, whether leadership is something a person either is born with and possesses or is not born with and doesn't. And I can tell you, leadership can be learned. If a genie appeared and gave me just one wish, it would be that people who learn leadership from me now could have seen me 50 years ago. I was not a good leader because I truly did not understand it. In my first leadership position, I led through popularity. I was charismatic and energetic, and I could make things fun, so people joined along with me. But I didn't really take anyone anywhere, and when I left the organization, it declined because I had gathered a crowd, and when I left, the crowd dispersed. I spent probably 6 months trying to figure out what happened and where I went wrong. At the end of that time, I came to this conclusion, that I was trying to lead out of personality instead of process. That's a problem because personality always takes shortcuts. I wanted people to like me, but I wasn't doing anything to help them change their behavior, take action, and win. Good leadership is bigger and better than just one person. You may have been born with great natural gifts or few. That's not important in the end, because the ability to lead is really a collection of skills, nearly all of which can be learned and improved. If you have loads of talent but never develop it, you will not lead as well as people with fewer gifts who dedicate themselves to the law of process. Becoming a better leader is a process that doesn't happen overnight. Leadership is complicated. It has many facets: respect, experience, emotional strength, people skills, discipline, vision, momentum, timing. Well, the list just goes on and on. As you can see, intangible. That's why leaders require so much seasoning to be effective. In a study of 90 top leaders from a variety of fields, leadership experts Warren Bennis and Bert Nannis made a discovery about the relationship between growth and leadership. It is the capacity to develop and improve their skills that distinguish leaders from their followers. Successful leaders are learners, and the learning process is ongoing, a result of self-discipline and perseverance. The goal each day must be to get a little better, to build on the previous day's progress. The problem is that most people overestimate the importance of events and underestimate the power of processes. We want quick fixes. We want the compounding effect that Ann Scheiber received over 50 years, but we want it in 50 minutes. Don't get me wrong, I appreciate events. They can be effective catalysts. But if you want lasting improvements, if you want power, then rely on process. Consider the difference between the two. For example, an event encourages decisions, where a process encourages development. An event motivates people. I think a process matures people. An event is a calendar issue. A process becomes a culture issue. An event challenges people. A process changes people. Let me put it maybe like this. An event is easy. A process, well, that's a lot more difficult. If I need to be inspired to take steps forward, then I'll attend an event. If I want to improve, then I'll engage in a process and stick with it. As a young leader, I discovered the law of process when I learned that I had to keep growing if I wanted to become a good leader. More than 50 years have gone by since then, and what I've discovered is that consistency compounds. By working to grow a little every day, I've grown a lot over the years. It takes time for the little things to add up to big things. Too often we get discouraged because we don't see great leaps in our growth. What we need to remember is that most changes occur gradually. It's like trying to freeze room temperature water. If you put water outside on a cold winter day, it will start changing from 75 degrees Fahrenheit down to 74, 73, 72. But it looks like nothing is happening. The water temperature goes down into the 60s, 50s, 40s, and still it looks like nothing is happening. But it keeps dropping. 37, 36, 35, 34, 33. So much time has gone by that you're ready to give up. Then it drops down to 32 degrees, and a major change occurs. It's a breakthrough change. You see, leaders are the same way. They need to keep learning and growing even if they don't see the payoff. Sometimes we are so close to having a compounding victory and we don't even know it. If we give up before the change, we miss it. Persistence pays and consistency compounds. As martial arts legend Bruce Lee said, long-term consistency trumps short-term intensity. Leadership is developed daily, not in a day. That is the reality dictated by the law of process. Benjamin Disraeli asserted, "The secret of success in life is for man to be ready for his time when it comes." What a person does on a disciplined, consistent basis gets him ready no matter what the goal. There's an old saying, champions don't become champions in the ring, they are merely recognized there. That's true. If you want to see where someone develops into a champion, look at his daily routine. Former heavyweight champ Joe Frazier stated, "You can map out a fight plan or a life plan. But when the action starts, you're down to your reflexes. That's where your road work shows. If you cheated on that in the dark of the morning, you're getting found out now under the bright lights." Boxing is a good analogy for leadership development because it's all about daily preparation. Even a person with natural talent has to prepare and train to become successful. One of this country's greatest leaders was a fan of boxing, President Theodore Roosevelt. In fact, one of his most famous quotes uses a boxing analogy. "It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbled, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes short again and again, and who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, and spends himself in a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat." Roosevelt, a boxer himself, was the ultimate man of action. Not only was he an effective leader, but he was one of the most flamboyant of all U.S. presidents. British historian Hugh Brogan described him as the ablest man to sit in the White House since Lincoln, the most vigorous since Jackson, and the most bookish since John Quincy Adams. T.R., Roosevelt's nickname, is remembered as an outspoken man of action and proponent of the vigorous life. While in the White House, he was known for regular boxing and judo sessions, challenging horseback rides and long, strenuous hikes. A French ambassador who visited Roosevelt used to tell about the time when he accompanied the president on a walk through the woods. When the two men came to the banks of a stream that was too deep to cross by foot, T.R. stripped off his clothes and expected the dignitary to do the same so that they could swim to the other side. Nothing was an obstacle to Roosevelt. At different times in his life, Roosevelt was a cowboy in the Wild West, an explorer and a big game hunter, and a rough-riding cavalry officer in the Spanish-American War. His enthusiasm and stamina seemed boundless. As the vice presidential candidate in 1900, he gave 673 speeches and traveled 20,000 miles while campaigning for President McKinley. And years after his presidency, while preparing to deliver a speech in Milwaukee, Roosevelt was shot by a would-be assassin. With a broken rib and a bullet in his chest, Roosevelt insisted on delivering his one-hour speech before allowing himself to be taken to the hospital. Of all the leaders this nation has ever had, Roosevelt was one of the toughest, both physically and mentally. But he didn't start that way. America's cowboy president was born in Manhattan to a prominent, wealthy family. As a child, he was puny and sickly. He had debilitating asthma, possessed very poor eyesight, and was painfully thin. His parents weren't sure that he would survive. When he was 12, young Roosevelt's father told him, "You have the mind, but you do not have the body, and without the help of the body, the mind cannot go as far as it should. You must make the body," and make it he did. He lived by the law of process. T.R. began spending time every day building his body as well as his mind, and he did that for the rest of his life. He worked out with weights, hiked, ice skated, hunted, rode horseback, and boxed. Roosevelt said, "I had a great admiration for men who were fearless, who could hold their own in the world, and I had a great desire to be like them." By the time T.R. graduated from Harvard, he was like them, and he was ready to tackle the world of politics. Roosevelt didn't become a leader overnight either. His road to the presidency was one of slow, continual growth. As he served in various positions, ranging from New York City Police Commissioner to President of the United States, he kept learning and growing, and in time, he became a strong leader. Under his leadership, the United States emerged as a world power, developed a first-class navy, and built the Panama Canal. He negotiated peace between Russia and Japan, winning a Nobel Peace Prize in the process. And when people questioned T.R.'s leadership, he had first become president when McKinley was assassinated, he campaigned and was reelected by the largest majority of any president up to this time. On January 6, 1919, at his home in New York, Theodore Roosevelt died in his sleep. Then Vice President Marshall said, "Death had to take him sleeping, for if Roosevelt had been awake, there would have been a fight." And when they removed him from his bed, they found a book under his pillow. Up to the very last, T.R. was striving to learn and improve himself. He was still practicing the law process. If you want to be a leader, the good news is that you can do it. Everyone has the potential, but it isn't accomplished overnight. It requires perseverance. And you absolutely cannot ignore the law of process. Leadership doesn't develop in a day. It takes a lifetime. When I teach the laws of leadership at conferences, the law of process is one of my favorite ones. And the reason is because I think that people really believe that if they just read one book on leadership or if they attend one conference on leadership, that somehow it's going to make a major change in their life. And one of the things I love to teach off the law of process is the phrase consistency compounds. Let me explain to you just kind of what I mean by that. I share in the chapter that I just read to you that if a genie could pop out of a bottle and I could have one wish, I wish that you could see me not now in my 70s. I wish you could see me when I was in my 20s. When I started out as a leader, I don't think I was particularly good. I certainly know that I didn't set myself apart from other young leaders. I don't think anybody looked at me at 24, 25, 26 and said, "He's going to be an amazing leader." I just don't think I was that good. But I tried to be very consistent in my daily growth. It goes back to Earl Nightingale saying to me that, John, in 5 years, if you spend 1 hour a day, every day on the same subject, you will become an expert in it. And I tried that. And in the beginning, I was like most people, well, how long is this going to take me? And so I was kind of in a countdown mode through those 5 years. How long will it take? And then, interestingly, in the middle of my 5-year process, I started asking the question, how far can I go? You see, the law of process was becoming a reality in my life. Over time, consistency compounds. Over time, staying focused on the subject of leadership, asking questions, practicing leadership, being around other great leaders. Over time, I became a good leader. Some today might even say a great leader. Here's what I know. It didn't happen overnight. So I want to encourage you, wherever you are right now, start the process. The way that you learn to be a leader is by practicing leadership. And the more that you practice, day in, day out, that law of process will become a reality to you. And someday you'll look at yourself and say, wow, how did this happen? How did I get to where I am? And you'll realize, one step at a time, one day at a time, the law of process really works in helping you develop your leadership. So, good luck. Start walking. Don't stop. It's uphill all the way, but it's worth the price that you pay for the journey.